Okay, if you are not new here, you know at the Kirkpatrick Podcast, at Kirkpatrick Partners, one of the most common questions or things that we hear is, we evaluate our program after they're delivered. Okay. Now, on the surface, it sounds great. It sounds really reasonable. And what everyone does, right? After you participate in experience, you get an after experience survey, right? I just got one. I went to a nail salon and right after, immediately, please review. How was the service? Complete the survey. So totally normal, what everyone does. We all know this, love this, do this, and we expect it. So today, what I want to really focus on is why training evaluation and something that happens after training is actually one of the biggest reasons it fails to influence performance. Because frankly, by the time the evaluation shows up, many of the important decisions and thoughts and impacts have actually already been made. And it's not just about training. We need to influence and know more about performance itself. And if we're not measuring at the right time or evaluating at the right time, we risk really having performance go off the rails and off track. When evaluation only comes into place after training, your goals are already set, success already been defined, metrics maybe have already been chosen, if metrics have already been chosen, and constraints are locked in. And at that point, evaluation can describe what happened, but it has very little power to shape what happens next. So think about, my example I was just kind of sharing. When we think of like a retrospective sort of survey, right? Think about my nail experience now. Know that I go to a place, lovely, great. I have a great experience. If they are not checking in with me throughout my time there, making sure, I'm okay, is the color right? Is the design okay? Is the water too hot? Is the water okay? It could lead to a very poor experience. Do you need anything to do you need water? Do you need coffee? Is there anything else I can do to make your experience here better? These are all things that are happening during my salon visit, which, to be clear, I hate getting my nails done. It's like torture for me just to sit there and know that I can't do something else with my time. So, let me know if this is also you. So I don't feel so alone about this, but I feel like y'all are my people and probably feel the same. So if they're not doing what we call formative evaluation and checking in with me throughout the entire experience so they can help ensure it is a good experience, you can bet the post-evaluation, the post-visit evaluation isn't going to not only be positive, but it's going to harm the reputation of the salon that I went to, right? And then influence my experience every time after, right? Or if I even come back, or if I then go and if someone asks me for a recommendation, I say, well, don't go there. Here are all the things that happened that went wrong, and no one gave a crap. No one checked in on me. No one made sure I was good. So you're not going to have a good experience there, and they're going to go somewhere else, and that starts to spread. We need to take that same look when it comes to our evaluation tactics. When evaluation is late, we can't tell you what needs to actually change. Is there some way that we need to pull someone back on course? If we don't know ahead of time what conditions are going to support or block the change that we're looking for, we're going to fail. Evaluation is a constant stream that happens throughout the entire design experience. it's not about coming in at the end to validate or let you know what went well and what didn't. It's to help influence and help you make better decisions from the beginning. You know, we need to know things like, what does success look like in actual context? It's not about like that's kind of why I sometimes hate the like, what does success look like to you? No. In context, what does someone actually need to be doing for this experience to be successful? What do you need to see happen? What do you specifically need to see changed? What numbers on your dashboard, on your scorecard do you need to see changed? These questions, right? This information that we're gathering about what actual performance or behaviors need to change and the conditions and success, what does success look like? They shape the design, the expectations, and actual leadership behavior. But when evaluation shows up too late and after the fact, these questions never get asked. Instead, all evaluation is left to do is confirm the outcomes that were defined before the work even began. And if there was no confirmation of the outcomes, then there's not much for them to confirm other than activity metrics, which if you did not check out that episode from last month, make sure you check that one out. We talk about why activity metrics are not going to actually tell your leaders anything about what they need. And they don't want that data. They don't care. And it's going to harm or hurt your brand over time and how you show up. You know, it's this hidden cost. One of the episodes I did last year, I think, I was about the ignorance tax. It's this thing that I heard from a YouTube sales influencer. And he's talking about this like ignorance tax and paying it down. And I'm like, how can we apply this ignorance tax to like what we do as an organization or as a learning function? And it's this hidden cost, right? We then end up getting to be the ones that are blamed when performance issues arise. When performance doesn't change, training gets blamed. Because we didn't ask the questions about what does the environment need to look like in order to support this change, those constraints, they continue. No one calls them out. And I shouldn't say calling them out because we're not talking about calling. We talk about environmental issues. It's not about calling it out, but it's just uncovering them, right? And making sure that whatever hidden comes into the light so that we can actually then take a stance to like actually try to make those changes or just acknowledge this is going to be a potential blocker. And leaders continue to assume that people need more training. They probably don't. They probably need a better manager. They probably just need more time to practice the skill. They don't actually need more training. They just need time, right? You don't build a habit after one training event, right? You build a habit over time. And it's not going to tell leaders, hey, these are the systems in our organization that are actually broken. And look, we all know what systems are broken in our organizations, but it's like that thing we all don't talk about, have some managers here who probably shouldn't have promoted. It's got some managers here that, probably need to go. As an organization, we typically do not honor or allow for feedback, failure. We don't really truly put the culture in place needed to allow folks to thrive. We expect them to do 5 people's jobs on one person's salary. We expect them to work 80 hours a week on a 40-hour budget or 40-hour salary. We don't actually give folks the budget they need to do things well. Those things don't get talked about. because that's the stuff we sweep under the rug, right? That's all like the hidden things that we like to keep in the closet, right? Like we all have got like, remember and Friends, Monica had the closet that she like shoved everything in, like everything else was perfect in her house, but she had that one closet that was always locked. That was just like a mess. That's that, right? Everything looks good, but we've got this messy, all of the mess right back there. No one's ever going to hear about it. No one's going to talk about it. It's there. It's not pretty. We're not going to talk about it. It's the same thing. And evaluation cannot become disconnected from reality. It's the only thing that's going to ground us and keep us truthful and keep us honest about how do we grow and how do we scale and innovate as an organization. So evaluation oftentimes can be hindered not because it's poorly done, but because it's been positioned way too far downstream for it to even matter. And that's where I think evaluation often gets misunderstood. It just becomes all about validation, about after the fact, about retrospectives. Yet it's meant to support sense making throughout the entire process. It's supposed to give you sense making about performance needs, about expectations, about the environment, and about results over time. And when we only use it to confirm outcomes, it loses its ability to guide decisions. So then we're looking for these other frameworks and tools and things like that to help us make decisions. When you have one right here, you need to implement it correctly. And when it loses that role, we stop influencing performance, and then eventually we stop influencing results. And as a learning, function and learning and performance function, we cannot risk losing our ability to influence performance. The wrong thing that we can do is think about evaluation at the end of the entire process. You know this. You know that I love the E bumping up to the beginning of the ADDIE process and being wrapped around the entire process. And I do believe that it is the foundation of the entire ADDIE process. I was once told it's kind of a bold claim to make. And I'm like, yep, I'm bold. You right. I am bold. Evaluation is the only way to get to this. The reason I was able to be so successful in my early career was because I really thought about performance and measurement and about what are we trying to influence here and provide a holistic solution. Now, does that mean every client, every stakeholder wanted to do my entire proposal? Nah, doesn't mean that. But it always went down on record. I said, hey, we need to do this, plus this, plus this if we want to ensure we're influencing performance. You want to take away from that because you want to change the scope? That's on you. You don't want to budget the time, the resources, that's the finances. That's not my problem. Here is the entire scope of what I recommend that will actually influence performance and then influence results. If you need to scale that back, just know here's the entire plan. If you want to do a little bit of it and then expand on in the future, great. But I think when we don't take the time to go on record with our recommendations, it becomes real hard to move away from getting blamed for performance issues. Because I could very confidently say when there is an issue, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Performance didn't change. You also only trained them one time and you gave them one practice round before putting them out into the Super Bowl. We're surprised that they didn't do well. See that sports reference again, y'all? I'm getting better at my sports references. And we're getting, well, I don't know, by the time this is out, might be the day after the Super Bowl, but, yeah, I think that we have an ability and we have a responsibility to rethink how we show up and share this information and share our recommendations so that evaluation stops being at the end of a process. No one is going to give you permission to start from the beginning. They don't know any better. This is not their level of this is not their subject matter expertise. We've got to show them. We've got to show them the way. We've got to show them a little pilot, like someplace that this worked, whether it's in your organization or another organization, and show them these little test cases to get them excited. We've got to sell it. We're the worst at selling ourselves and selling what it is that we need or want, and we've got to get better at that. And one of the things, as you walk through the collective, you're going to reflect on, especially if you're participating in the performance designer certification, you're going to reflect on where does evaluation actually enter into your process today? We have this whole, this huge process. This is the question that we get asked a lot too. How do I do the whole Kirkpatrick thing? And, we had bronze, we had silver, we had performance designer. And I said, Jordan, I know this is the last thing we want to do is create another model or framework, but we've got to build the primary large framework and then show them where all of these other frameworks pop in and how they do this whole process. And when you walk through that model and you put it up next to where evaluation shows up in your organization and where it does realistically enter, not where it should, realistically, where is it happening in your organization, you will see how late to the game you are. And it makes it so much more difficult to influence everything else that's happening. So you have to take the onus and the ownership, take evaluation and move it to the beginning of your process. And know that it helps to influence the entire design, everything about your process and about your recommendations are influenced by evaluation. And that question alone is enough to explain why evaluation often feels so disconnected from performance, because you haven't even entered into the conversation at the right time to design the right solution. Evaluation rarely fails because it's done poorly. It fails because it was introduced too late to even matter. And when evaluation is treated as sense-making instead of validation, it stops being an afterthought and starts to become a strategic capability that only your function can provide. And that's how you start to get that seat at the table. So friends, I would love to know truly, where in your process do you see evaluation happen? And what's one step that you can take to move it up earlier in your process? Leave a comment in the YouTube channel, tag us on LinkedIn, connect with us. We would love to hear more about this from you all. And friends, we will catch you all on the next episode. Thanks for listening. Bye.